Hello and welcome to a brand new video. My name is Lewis Spears and I'm still in quarantine. I'm currently at home and I'm protecting myself and my family from germs like many other Americans by buying guns. Now, since the last video I did on my channel, I am a new man, I'm a different person, I'm actually a much better person. I got a lot of criticism from my last video because many people were saying that I had too much toilet paper. And you know what? I agree. I've gotten rid of all of the rolls of toilet paper that I did have, and I've downgraded to half a roll. This is what I'm going to be using for the rest of the crisis to atone for stocking up on too much toilet paper. Now, you might be wondering, what did I do with the rest of the toilet paper? Well, I'm a good person, right? I love charity work, so I decided to donate them. The minute I heard that Australia was facing a toilet paper shortage, I decided to head down to some of our most vulnerable people in the country to donate toilet rolls to them personally. That's right, I found a retirement home that specialized in housing senior citizens with autoimmune disease. And these people are obviously very lonely, no one's visiting them. I don't know why, I haven't really looked into it, but I decided to go in person, no face mask, no gloves. I wanted to make it personal, and I started to hand out toilet paper, giving people eye contact, shaking their hands, and talking very close because a lot of them are very hard of hearing. And I feel like that's what these people need. And yes, I was feeling quite sick at the time. I had a very high fever. I was coughing frequently. Every time I did cough, I would involuntarily yell, Wuhan, but I didn't let that stop me because I'm a good person and I love charity. So before you say that I'm a bad person, why don't you just watch the start of the video and see what I just did for elderly people with autoimmune diseases. I'm a fucking hero. Alright, let's get into the main part of the video, shall we? So, as we all know, coronavirus is hitting the entire world and it is mainly only affecting women. Or at least that's what a lot of feminist journalists would like you to believe. Whenever there's a global crisis that affects humanity equally and should inspire us to come together as one to overcome it together, there will always be people who studied feminist theory and have shit haircuts who will want to divide us instead. The article that I'm about to read from is a perfect example of this. While the world is going through a crisis that we need to work together to solve, this person is trying to divide us so that we all read her article and fight each other instead of actually fixing the problem just so they can make money out of ads because we click their shit article. The headline of the article reads, "Women are bearing the brunt of coronavirus." And if we have a look here, this article is written by a Dr. Janet Paskin. Let me just Google. Because I'm sure that no one would make wild claims about coronavirus unless they were a medically trained professional, right? Janet Paskin is a graduate of the Columbia School of Journalism. Right, so she went to a shit university and now she's on minimum wage writing clickbait articles, so we should definitely trust her. Now, my dear viewers, what you are about to hear is something very special. I'm going to read the first paragraph of this opinion piece, and this is one of those rare moments in a terrible article where the author completely debunks their own argument within the first paragraph of their own article that is arguing the opposite of what they themselves is saying. This is fucking magic. I would like to remind you, the headline is "Women are bearing the brunt of coronavirus." Now, let's begin. In strictly medical terms, the new coronavirus seems to hit men harder than women. Fuck Janet, what other terms are there when we're talking about a fucking virus than medical terms? Like, that's what we're talking about. Does it kill you? Yes. Does it kill more men? Almost twice as many? Yes. So it's worse for men. I'm sorry. No matter how women are affected in other ways, which yes, they absolutely will be, and we're all going through this together, but it is undeniably worse for men because more men die. Just like how breast cancer is worse for women because more women die. I'm sure that lots of men who lose partners to breast cancer have a terrible time and it hurts them economically, but they're still fucking breathing and they have their tits. So while it is bad, it's not as bad as dying. I can't believe I have to fucking explain this to another grown woman. that dying is worse than being poor. I guess to Janet, the only thing worse than being dead is being poor and a woman. The main reasons why Janet says women are affected more than men by coronavirus is because 8 out of 10 nurses are women. That's true. She also says that 100% of mums are women. That's not true. Anyone could be a mum. But she's saying that if you close down schools, obviously mums will be affected by that because maybe they'll have to leave work. Now, I would ask Janet, do they have to leave work and then shoot themselves and die? If the answer is no, I would still say that men are suffering more because they are dying. But regardless, I think that this fucking gender argument over who is suffering more due to coronavirus is fucking ridiculous. Like, how about, hey, do we have a cure yet? Why don't you write those kinds of articles? Like, hey, how do we help solve this crisis instead of fighting over the crumbs of victim points to find out who's oppressed more when it comes to this fucking deadly virus? This article is so terrible that it has no quotes from experts. It doesn't have any, victim impact statements. If they're trying to argue that one group is affected more than another group, it has no interviews with women that are agreeing with her. I haven't seen a single person online, male or female, that agrees with Janet on this one. The only kind of anecdotal evidence, which isn't good evidence, that Janet has in her article is this. She writes, on Facebook and in group chats, they troubleshoot glitches with Zoom or Google Classroom and swap tips for dealing with stir-crazy kids. There is a lot of crying face emoji and hashtag whine mum. That is the worst thing that Janet has ever heard of. As a fucking white woman living in the first world, the worst thing she can think of is putting a crying face emoji into a group chat on Facebook and talking about how much wine they've been drinking because they're a little bit sad. For fuck's sake, I think that coronavirus should take all of us out. If that is what we think a problem is, I think that we should all go around, fuck the face masks off, coughing into each other's mouths because we don't deserve how good our fucking life is. We've blown it. We don't appreciate it at all. We're writing fucking articles complaining about crying face emojis on Facebook while children in Africa starve and people living in poor countries cough and die and they never find out why. I'm going to move on from this article. I have another one to get to, but just before I do, I would like to point out the thing that shit me the most about this article is that Janet tries to explain away the thing that debunks her own argument. So she's saying that women suffer more than men do due to coronavirus, but the start of her article starts off, obviously, with twice as many men die. So how does she explain that away? So the twice as many men die is a figure from China, and she says that, she's correct, but she says here, in China, men are more likely to smoke cigarettes so they have weaker lungs, right? That's also true. But what she's doing here is she is saying that even though the virus affects men more, that's because of their lifestyle choices. So it's not actually unequal, because the reason why men are suffering more in this situation is because of the choices that they have made in life, which are incredibly voluntary. Now, what does that sound like? Does that sound like the wage gap? Alright, moving on. Now, since Janet's article came out, she received a lot of negative attention for it, rightly so, I believe. But since then, a few more nuanced takes on this argument have come out. Now, this one is actually not that bad. This is how you actually constructively approach the problem, rather than just saying that women will be affected more by coronavirus than men, which is just flat out wrong and also doesn't help anyone, because we need to solve this crisis and then figure out how we will recover economically from it, right? You don't fucking focus on economics first and save lives later. That's how everyone dies. The headline reads, gender economist Katika Roy says, if we don't act now, women will bear the brunt of the financial crisis caused by coronavirus. If you're like me and you've heard that headline, you might be wondering what a gender economist is. Now, a gender economist is like a regular economist, but they're only 70% as good. Now, this article, which I think is actually quite good, I will link it below, has a lot of interesting points. Now, Katika is making the argument that while we don't need to be focusing on this right now, we need to be preparing for what we will do with the economy after the coronavirus outbreak starts to slow down, because a lot of the jobs that are affected are jobs that women have. Hospitality is fucked. Schools are closing down all over the world. There are so many industries that are primarily female that are shutting down because of coronavirus. Obviously, that's going to affect women way more economically than it does men. And what Katika is saying is that we need to start readying programs to help women get back into these industries, because otherwise, if 50% of the population is poor and broke, that will affect everyone. And at the end of this article, which I actually recommend you read, it's very interesting, Katika outlines 6 points of how we can stop this economic impact from hitting women and thus families especially hard. Now, the solutions, very interesting, are not gendered at all. They're just focused on industries that women primarily inhabit. So obviously, if you're a male outlier in the industry that these points would supposedly help, you would benefit from that as well. And I think that's really the main point of my video, is that whenever there's a fucking crisis, it affects us all. Like something like this, it's a virus. It doesn't care if you have a fucking pussy. It's gonna eat your lungs, okay? So if you have lungs, you're at risk. So the idea that whenever there's an international crisis or disaster, that all of these journalists rush in to argue and bicker about who's the most affected and which group it'll affect the most, rather than actually trying to work out how the fuck do we solve this for everyone, is absolutely ridiculous, especially when it's a thing like a virus that really does essentially affect us equally. In terms of infection rates, it's pretty much 50-50. The death rates is more men, but that is, you know, primarily due to male choices in life. You know, things like alcohol and smoking and all that kind of shit. That's fair enough. But in terms of infection rates, it affects us equally. So this is a problem that we all have to deal with. And arguing over who is the most affected when it's literally about 1 to 3% difference doesn't matter at all. That just gets in the way of how do we actually fix this fucking problem. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. I'm stuck in quarantine and I am bored out of my mind. I can't get a fucking haircut. I have to wear a hat. You know, I gave them my toilet paper to all these elderly people with autoimmune disease, and now none of them will text me back. It's actually a little bit strange, isn't it? Yeah, I hope they're all right. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Lewis Spears. If you want to check out my channel, I'm going to be blasting out videos very, very frequently because I can't leave the house. My tour's been cancelled, so this is all I'm going to be doing. So stick around on my channel if you're new, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer and you wanted to see me live or you want to support what I'm doing, please do consider checking out my comedy special or my TV pilot, Spears vs. America. They are streaming right now exclusively on my website, louspears.com/watch. Lord knows the money would help because, whew, cancelling 23 shows hurts the back pocket a little bit. But regardless, I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep putting shit out because we're all stuck at home and I'm just trying to entertain and do my best and bring a bit of joy into the world and stop all this silly bullshit, alright? We're all fucking struggling. It affects all of us. So let's fucking pull together, not apart. I think that makes sense, alright? Thanks, guys. New video in a couple of days. Subscribe, stick around. I've been Lewis Spears. Have a good one.